What's going on, guys, and welcome back to hashtag AskGSM here today, episode 230. I'm Graham GSM Matthews for April 25th, 2018. Hope you guys are doing well. And oh my fucking god, I just got back from Infinity War last night, went to go see it at midnight. No spoilers. Zero spoilers, except for one. The movie was awesome, so go see it. Even if you're not an MCU fan, even if you're not a superhero movie fan, you're going to fucking love Avengers. It does help if you're familiar with the other MCU movies, or at least most of them. But this movie was still fucking awesome. We'll talk more about it at the end of this edition of Hashtag, as there were some people who asked Avengers-themed questions. But nonetheless, I am tired as a dog right now. Well worth it, though. That movie was unreal. Unreal, to put it lightly. But anyway, guys, before we get started, if you want to send in questions to the show, you can tweet me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. You can find me on Facebook as well, at facebook.com/gram.gsm.matthews. Leave a question on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights. And last, but certainly not least, be sure to drop your questions on this very video in the comment section down below. I'll include it in next week's edition. So let's get started here with Captain Sunshine from YouTube. It's early, but Dolph Ziggler is surprisingly the person who gained the most from the Superstar shakeup. He's got a fresh start on Raw with Drew McIntyre as his muscle. They got a great tandem finisher that's going to look real bad if they ever miss time it, which I agree with. And he seems like he's working towards a goal he cares about for the first time in forever. It's a nice-looking team, and I hope they don't break up a month from now by having them win the tag team titles, Dolph Ziggler deciding to forfeit the titles and quit again, and Drew McIntyre kicking his ass for it. Or actually, do I want that? I might want that. Should I want that? So, I would hope not. I mean, Vince has the attention of a fucking, gnat, of a flea, because the guy is so spontaneous with his decisions, and he puts no long-term thought in any creative plans that he has. Unless your name is Roman Reigns, other than that, he changes his mind on a whim. Hopefully not with Ziggler and McIntyre. So far, I've been liking what I've been seeing from these guys. I completely agree. It's going to look bad if they ever miss time that tag team finisher they had, the zigzag and the Claymore kick. That was awesome. I really like that tag team finisher a lot. I like when the superstars kind of combine their own finishing maneuvers to create one super mega finishing maneuver. So that looks great. But they fared well for themselves on Raw this week. I like the tag team on paper. Their post-match promo was great. I mean, we've seen Ziggler get all passionate and come close to crying during his promos. But McIntyre, obviously, is the real star of the team. The guy looks like a fucking god. He looks like he was chiseled out of stone. He showed passion in his promo. Just, I don't know, McIntyre just gives off this superstar feel. Obviously, much more now than he did 5 years ago, when he was last with the company before he got released back in 2014. But I'm liking what I've been seeing from these guys so far, so I don't want to write it off just yet. I did even talk about last week, Jason and I talked about in Wrestle Rant Radio, I think there's a clip of it here on the channel, that I do think that this tag team can go somewhere. I do think that this tag team will elevate Ziggler more than it's going to hinder Drew. And yeah, I like the fact that they're building towards a goal as well. I mean, so far, again, that might be abandoned next week, but so far, so good with these guys. And you're right, Ziggler, I don't know if he's the biggest beneficiary from the brand split, or not from the brand split, from the Superstar shakeup, but he could be when all is said and done. I do think Gable is the biggest beneficiary so far. And Samoa Joe being a top star on SmackDown, he really hasn't done anything yet, but Gable, in one night on Raw, has already beaten a former WWE champion in Jinder Mahal. That's probably more matches he's won on Raw than he ever won on SmackDown in the last 6 months. So I want to say that Gable's probably the biggest beneficiary so far, but Ziggler's not far behind. From Mark S. from Facebook, he's got a few questions here. First one being, who do you think will win the greatest Royal Rumble match? Well, quite honestly, does it even matter? Because so far, from what I can gather, that the winner is earning a trophy. A fucking trophy. And I know they do that with the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic, but at least that means something. This, maybe it'll become an annual thing. I don't know. Just for WWE to hand out a trophy, to me, just seems completely pointless. For one of the greatest feats you can achieve by winning the greatest Royal Rumble match in history, to win a trophy seems completely pointless. I don't care if it was even for an Intercontinental title match the next night's Raw, or on the next taping of Main Event. I don't give a shit. It's something, not to vie for a goddamn trophy. Then who cares? Who the hell could possibly care? I mean, it's a Rumble match. People will care no matter what. But in regards to the winner, why should I care whether Braun Strowman wins or Mike Kanellis? Because if they're going to win a trophy, then who gives a shit? You know what I mean? If I had to take a pick, there's really not one obvious person that stands out to me. Like, I don't think Shane McMahon or Kurt Angle is going to win it, or not a part-timer, but like a surprise return, such as the Great Khali or Rey Mysterio. I mean, that'd be awesome in Ray's case, not so much in Khali's case. I don't think any of those people are winning it. My top choices would have to be, and Joe's in the other match, is in the IC title match, so he won't be in this thing. Lashley would be cool. I don't think they see him as a top star at the moment from what, we've seen so far, but I don't think he's going to win this. If I had to take a choice, one from Raw, one from SmackDown, I would say either Braun Strowman from Raw, because the guy's been directionless for months now. He needs something to do. And hopefully we find out coming out of Backlash or this show that he has something important in mind. Or I don't know. They got to do something with Braun Strowman. The guy just can't spin his wheels forever. He's so goddamn over. You can't just do nothing with the guy forever. But to give him a bit of a boost, I would have him win this Rumble. Either him from Raw or Daniel Bryan on SmackDown. Now, Daniel Bryan's going on to face Big Cass at the next Backlash pay-per-view. So I don't know if they would have him win a huge match, only to go on to lose to Big Cass, or not lose, but like go on to face Big Cass at Backlash. I highly doubt that's the case. But you never know. I think the crowd would go nuts for it. Other than those guys, I mean, who else do you really have win the thing? I know there's a bunch of filler guys in there like the New Day and Baron Corbin. Who cares? It's a 50-man Rumble. You got to fill out the field somehow, but if I had to take a choice, I think it's either going to be, I think it should be either Daniel Bryan or Braun Strowman. Who do I think it will be? I mean, Roman Reigns is going for the championship, so it won't be Roman Reigns. Otherwise, I do think it would be Roman Reigns if he wasn't in the main event of the show already. That's about it. I'm not really sure who else could realistically win the thing. Again, they're bringing in a lot of star power for this thing. Chris Jericho, The Big Show coming back for the first time in a while. Mark Henry, who's apparently not retired, even though he was inducted into the Hall of Fame like a month ago. Shane McMahon, Kurt Angle, this guy, that guy. I don't know. I mean, Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, maybe it would be pretty cool, but I don't see that being the case either. So I'm going to go with either Braun Strowman or Daniel Bryan. Mark's second question here. Who do you reckon could be the challengers for the men's and women's singles titles at the next NXT TakeOver? So for the singles titles, I mean, we have really no idea. We've had one episode of NXT in the can since TakeOver New Orleans. We have a new episode tonight that obviously hasn't aired yet as of this recording. I think we're getting Adam Cole versus Oney Larkin tonight on the show for the NXT North American Championship, which would be really good. I don't know who else they might put up against Adam Cole, baby. I honestly have no idea, and that's why I'm excited for it. I think for the NXT Championship, so also in tonight's show, we're getting Johnny Gargano versus Aleister Black for the NXT title. I don't think that'll have a decisive finish. I don't think Gargano's winning the belt, but I do think we might get Gargano versus Black versus Ciampa at the next TakeOver if they go in that direction. I think a three-way with those guys would be awesome, and we really do not see multi-man matches for the NXT Championship all too often. Like, I honestly could not tell you of another multi-man match for the NXT title that wasn't, aside from that Fatal 4-Way a few years ago, from I think 2014, with Tyson Kidd, Tyler Breeze, who else was in that? Adrian Neville and Sami Zayn. I think other than that, I don't think there's ever been a multi-man match for the NXT title. The complete opposite of the fucking main roster when they do 5-pack and 6-pack and 10-man matches constantly. But no, I think that'd be great for the Chicago show. I'll be there, so it'd be pretty awesome to see that live. I think I got that down as a lock for the NXT Championship. For the North American title, I have no clue. Zero clue. I think Cole's not losing it tonight to Lorcan. That's pretty obvious. Adam Cole versus... I don't even know. I guess we could see Adam Cole versus Ricochet, though I do think we're getting Ricochet versus Velveteen Dream. That seems to make more sense. Killian Dane got moved up to the main roster. Andrade got moved up to the main roster. Like a mid-card babyface in NXT right now. I don't know. I think an obvious match would be to do Adam Cole, Roderick Strong, and in Kyle O'Reilly versus the British Strong Style of Tyler Bate, Pete Dunne, and Trent Seven. But I think they're doing that in England shortly before TakeOver. So I don't think that's going to... I mean, that would also mean there's no tag title or North American title match. I don't think they'll do that. So I'm not really sure for the North American title. For the Women's Championship, I think it's going to be Shayna Baszler and probably Kairi Sane. I mean, there's a number of baby faces that Baszler could face in time. Dakota Kai. There's Kai. Candice LeRae is a pretty obvious one. I guess they could do LeRae if they wanted to. But I think she should be the ultimate person to dethrone Baszler as champion. I think Zayn makes the most sense right now. Baszler attacked her. She beat her on NXT a few months ago. Zayn beat her in the finals of the Mae Young Classic late last year. And Zayn also recently won a match on TV against, I think, Lacey Evans on the show that was taped before TakeOver a few weeks ago. So I think Kairi Sane makes the most sense. I would love to see Sane versus Baszler Part 3 at TakeOver Chicago. And then, that's about it for all these singles titles. So the tag team titles, again, I have no clue. There's a bunch of tag teams they could possibly face, like in either British Strong Style or, I mean, I guess Pete Dunne and, like, Tyler Bate would seem to make the most sense. But then again, would it be too similar to what we just saw with Pete Dunne and Roderick Strong? Like the unlikely allies joining forces for a common cause? I don't know. But still, either them or Street Profits... Heavy Machinery? Yeah, maybe. I mean, I guess they could do War Raiders, but I think War Raiders should be the ultimate tag team that dethrones the Undisputed Era for the tag team titles. They should not be the first ones fed to those guys. I think they have a ton of momentum and a ton of upside. So to be fed to the Undisputed Era in their first TakeOver match would be a mistake, in my opinion. Mark's next question. What was your overall opinion of the Impact versus the Lucha Underground pay-per-view you saw? Did it meet your expectations, or were you disappointed? So... the Impact vs. Lucha show happened, I think, at the WrestleCon event over WrestleMania weekend on the Friday. It aired on Twitch, so very easy to go back and watch the whole thing. I watched it well after the fact, like maybe 4 or 5 days after the fact, just because I was so busy watching TakeOver and Supercard of Honor and WrestleMania and the Hall of Fame and all that other shit, that the Impact vs. Lucha show was kind of low down the list, but I did want to check it out. I mean, I'm a big Lucha fan. They are bringing the show back in mid-June, which is very exciting. And I think more companies could benefit from working together. A lot like with Ring of Honor and New Japan, I think Impact and Lucha working together is great. And actually, Pentagon Jr., spoiler alert, but it happened 3 days ago at this point, actually won the Impact World title at their most recent pay-per-view, the Redemption pay-per-view, which was a shocker, but I thought it was awesome. But yeah, the Impact versus Lucha show, it was good. It was not like must-see by any means. You're not missing out if you don't go back and watch it. I think the main event was the best thing on the entire show. It was Pentagon. The same main event we just saw at Redemption. It was Pentagon, Phoenix, and Austin Aries in a non-title match because Del Rio had to pull out because the guy no-showed the event and then he was fired like the next day. And rightfully so. But no, I thought it was good. It was not too long. It was only around 2.5 hours. It had a cool presentation and being in front of the WrestleCon audience. It was largely well handled. You had Josh Matthews representing Impact on commentary. You had Matt Stryker representing Lucha on commentary. And the matches were overall pretty good. There really wasn't a bad match the entire show. It was a lot like Redemption, where I thought it was a solid show with a great main event. Not must-see by any means, but that's still a step above most TNA shows I've seen in the last 5 to 6 years. 5 to 7 years. Because a lot of those TNA shows in recent years have been just completely missable. Completely missable. So both the Impact versus Lucha show and Redemption from Sunday night were major steps in the right direction. And Mark's final question here. Did you watch the new Bruce Pritchard show on the WWE Network? And if so, what was your impression of it? I did see it. I will not be reviewing it for WWE Network and Chill just because, well, my first impression was because it's too long. The show was like an hour and 45 minutes, which, to be fair, it's basically their podcast in video form. And I've never listened to the podcast before. A lot of people have recommended it to me. Oh, it's one of the greatest podcasts out there. I don't know. I'm really just comfortable listening to, for wrestler podcasts, Chris Jericho's and Steve Austin's. And that's all I listen to. I don't really have much time for anything else. I like to listen to like one a day, and that's about it. Pritchard's, they do one on Fridays, and it's sometimes like 3 to 6 hours long. Like I could see if you have a long commute to work. I don't. There's not anywhere I'm driving or in commute for multiple hours at a time. So that's a no for me. But I did check out the show because I was curious, and I liked it. I'm looking forward to the next show tonight. The first episode premiered last Wednesday, and it talked about WrestleMania 14 and a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff. A lot of stuff I didn't even know about. I'm sure maybe other people did, and reading on the dirt sheets and being around for that pay-per-view. I wasn't. I'm not too high on the Attitude Era to begin with. But I thought it was a really, really interesting show. And it made me want to go back to the archives of the other shows, something to wrestle with. This is something else to wrestle with Bruce Pritchard. It made me want to go back to the original archives and check out other episodes of the show. So again, it was a little long, but the time seemed like it flew by. Because Conrad Thompson and Bruce Pritchard are a very entertaining duo. They have great chemistry. They have a great format for the show. So I enjoyed it. And they pull no punches either. I haven't seen the original show, like I said, but the only really thing they edited here, I mean, they talked about Dave Meltzer, and they talked about all this other stuff they wouldn't expect them to. They took shots at Vince on his own fucking network. But they only really censored the cursing. They might have said shit, but they definitely censored fuck a couple times, which is understandable. I mean, it's a G network, the WWE network, that is. So I get it. But yeah, no, I enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to the second show tonight. I would certainly recommend it to other people. That it's a little on the longer side for most people. I'm sure that doesn't bother them. So I won't be reviewing it just because there's a lot to digest on the show. And my review would be like an hour long if I ever talked about it. But still, I would definitely recommend you check it out on the network, and a new episode airs tonight. Jeremy B. from Twitter, or rather from Facebook. I put down Twitter, sorry Jeremy, but your questions are from Facebook this week. Your first question was, do you think Dallas and Axel should walk with Elias or join the Woken universe? You know, it's interesting. I think either one could work. I'm a big fan of doing something with those guys, and I like the fact they broke him off from the Miz, because I think Miz can fly on his own on now that he's on SmackDown. He doesn't really need the Miztourage anymore. Maurice, she just had birth like less than a month ago, so I'm not sure when or even if she'd be back. I assume she will be at some point, just probably not anytime soon. But yeah, with Dallas and Axel, the Elias thing intrigues me a lot. It gives Elias something to do. I'm not sure what Elias is doing right now other than seemingly feuding with Bobby Roode. Who cares? I mean, I like both guys, but like that's not really a feud that lights the world on fire for me. Elias, Dallas, and Axel would be a cool trio. It seemed like they were going in that direction a few months ago when Elias was like introducing The Miz, and then it went nowhere. Then again, Dallas and Axel in the Woken universe, especially Dallas, and how he can play off his brother Bray, who actually tweeted something about Dallas joining the Woken universe a couple days ago, I think could be a lot of fun as well. So I'm down to either idea. If I had to choose, probably Elias, just to give him like a, like roadies, like the Road Dogg was to Jeff Jarrett back in the day. I think that'd be pretty cool. Elias walking alone is also entertaining, so it really doesn't matter for Elias. He's good either way. But then with the Woken universe, I mean, Bray Wyatt and Matt Hardy are fine as it is right now, but having them join their crew along with the Ascension maybe at some point, who seem to be perfect fits for the Woken universe, could be enjoyable as well. Jeremy's second question: thoughts on Chad Gable looking to be getting a singles push, and who would you like to see him in the ring with? So I like the idea a lot of Gable getting pushed on Raw. I said as much, I think, last week, that I think Gable can be a real unexpected gem in the superstar shakeup, in that I don't think a lot of people had high expectations for him on his own, just because they haven't really been doing much with him in recent months. And I find it comical that in the same week that Gable and Benjamin kind of part ways, Gable goes to Raw, Benjamin stays on SmackDown. Gable beats Jinder Mahal on Raw, and Shelton Benjamin beat Randy Orton on SmackDown. They've already found more success individually than they ever did together, which is comical. But I do like Gable being on his own. The guy is great. I mean, if you ever follow the guy in NXT, maybe not so much in the main roster, because he's been good at the main roster too, but I think he really, truly shined in NXT. And the American Alpha stuff was great, but to me, he's got single superstar potential all over him, written all over him. He can be a comedy guy, he can be a serious guy, he can go in the ring, he can work with whoever you put him in the ring with. Gable is really freaking good. So I'm glad he's seemingly getting a chance to shine on Raw. Unless Jinder just beats him and gets his win back next week, which I think would be a waste. Gable could be a real asset to that Raw mid-card tag team Raw mid-card division, not the tag team division. I think we're done with Gable as a tag team guy for the foreseeable future. Unless he's teaming with Kurt Angle, and that turns out to be his real father, and Jason Jordan is not the son of Kurt Angle. That would be entertaining, but I don't think they're going in that direction. Anyway, people I want to see Gable in the ring with, Jordan, obviously, one-on-one, I think, is a feud waiting to happen. Jordan is the heel, Gable's the babyface. They got to heat up Gable a little bit before they get to Jordan, and Jordan is still out hurt anyway. But I think that could be a great feud at some point, especially over the Intercontinental Championship. It doesn't need a title, but I think that'd be a perfect feud to do over that mid-card belt at some point down the road. Speaking of which was currently held by Seth Rollins versus Gable, I think it'd be a great fucking match. Those guys can go in there and just have an awesome Matt Classic. So definitely Seth Rollins. And Baron Corbin, too. I've seen a few people say this, but Baron Corbin and Gable could be a feud I could get behind. That end of days on Gable at TakeOver Respect, like 3 years ago, was unbelievable. That was really the coming out party for Gable and Jordan as a tag team. They had a great showing against Corbin and Rhino on that show. An absolutely unbelievable showing. They lost, but they looked very strong in defeat, and that was when they continued to build momentum and become the hot team that they were in NXT. But yeah, Corbin and Gable could be a real fun feud. I know Corbin also needs to be heated up a little bit. He's been doing much of nothing for a while now, but I don't think they have ever faced off one-on-one on TV anyway. So yeah, Gable and Corbin could be a very interesting feud at some point down the road. Again, they gotta make Corbin mean something before they get to that. I mean, Gable beating Corbin right now, who gives a shit, because Corbin's been doing nothing for a while. But it could be a fun feud if they're given enough time for their matches. Because the dynamic there with Gable being the ultimate underdog and Corbin not caring about like the wrestlers of the roster could make for an awesome dynamic and a really, really fun feud. And Jeremy's final question here, with Braun and Lashley being directionless right now, do you think they should have had Lashley be Braun's partner at WrestleMania and had them hold the tag team titles for a few months? I don't see why not. I mean, I do think that should have happened. I don't see why not. I mean, the whole Nicholas thing was completely stupid. I know some people got a kick out of it. I got a kick out of the fallout on Raw with like, oh, he has school, he's got a conflict, he's got the 4th grade, or however Braun said it. I mean, again, I thought that was funny. The whole angle was a complete waste of time. Yeah, they should have put Braun and Lashley in the tag team division, and they had a great showing. The crowd was so behind Bobby and Braun, especially Braun on Monday, that I think having them team up for a while, and I think Jeremy also tweeted something about this, so to credit him for the idea, you could have them team up for a while, coming out of WrestleMania as the tag team champions. They lose the belts, and then one of them goes heel, preferably Lashley, and they have a feud. That makes the most sense to me. Now, that could still be the direction they're going in, but you are absolutely right. Both guys are beyond directionless right now. I mean, they're still winning, and they're still over. I mean, Lashley, I saw people say, oh, he's not special anymore. It's like, what? Like, the guy's been around for 2 weeks. He's won every match he's been a part of. Just give me a fucking break. Shut the fuck up. If you're one of those people like, oh my god, they've already ruined Lashley, it's like, by doing what? The guy hasn't done that much, which I know is kind of a what people are referring to, but it's like they can't expect him to put him in a top-tier program from the get-go. They have no idea what they're doing with anyone right now on the roster. They still have the Superstar Shake-Up fallout going on right now. They got the greatest Royal Rumble. They got Backlash coming up. Coming out of Backlash, they can put him in a real feud. Braun's even a bigger, that's a bigger question mark. That's more of a mind-boggling decision, in my opinion, just because Braun is so over. And unlike Lashley, it's not like he's been directionless for a few weeks now. He's been directionless for like months, coming out of that Universal Championship program with Brock Lesnar. He lost the Rumble, ended the feud with Kane, lost the Chamber, won at WrestleMania with a fucking 10-year-old, and he's been doing nothing of note since. So I would hope they have some sort of big plan for Braun coming out of Backlash. I don't have hope they will. But yeah, I don't see why not. They just could have just put the tag team titles on him at WrestleMania. I think that would have been a great surprise. I mean, Lashley returned the next night on Raw anyway. So I think it would have been cool if they brought him out as Braun's partner. They wreck shit and they win the belts. I mean, I like what they're doing with Woken, Matt, and Bray right now. They're obviously winning the Raw tag team titles at the greatest Royal Rumble event. And if Braun and Lashley were partners, then Woken, Matt, and Bray would not be getting the tag titles anytime soon, if that was the case. But so, I mean, it has its pros and cons, but yeah, it is kind of a weird thing in retrospect why they just didn't put them together starting at WrestleMania and build to a program from there. At Rycoach27, With Avengers coming out, he thought this was timely, and I agree. What wrestler would be which Avenger? You don't have to do all, but I would love to hear your thoughts on who would be the main 7 and Thanos. So who are the main 7 Avengers at this point? So, I mean, I guess you have, like, in my opinion, you had the original Avengers in the original Avengers movie that came out 6 years ago, 2012. And then they kind of muddied the waters a little bit in 2015 with number 2. I think everyone was in that one, too. But they added a few people. You had Falcon from Captain America. And I think Ant-Man was in that, too, I'm pretty sure. Actually, no, he wasn't. He was in Civil War. He wasn't in Age of Ultron. But anyway, I'm not even sure who the main Avengers are at this point. I mean, I'm not going to, again, spoil anything for Infinity War. But there's a lot of people in Avengers that aren't Avengers. You know, you have... Is Scarlet Witch like an official Avenger now? Like, I'm not really sure. So I'm strictly going to go off of the people from the main Avengers movie 6 years ago. The original Avengers squad in 2012. So Thanos would obviously have to be Brock Lesnar. That to me makes the most sense. Not only does he look like Josh Brolin, who I think portrays Thanos in the movies, but Lesnar's like the ultimate bad guy of the WWE. The one that everyone wants to beat. He's like the big bad. The big bad of the WWE. He's undefeated, this all-powerful force that everyone falls to unless they team up together to take him out. So Lesnar is very obviously Thanos. That to me is just a given. Probably more obvious than anyone else. For the rest, so I'm going to include Hulk here, Thor, Hawkeye, Iron Man, Captain America, and Black Widow. And did I say Iron Man? I think I did. So those are going to be my Avengers squad here, because those were the original Avengers in Avengers 1. And I don't know if you count Samuel L. Jackson's character. I don't think he's an official Avenger, is he? Anyway, Hulk would have to be Braun Strowman. By the way, I'm using all baby faces for this one, or baby faces in storyline. But I think Hulk would have to be Braun Strowman. Goes out there, wrecks shit, can't control his temper. The big, strong guy that everyone loves. Strowman is, to me, very obviously the Hulk. Hulk is it's got to be a dead ringer for Braun Strowman. For Thor, Roman Reigns would seem to make the most sense. Because Thor has always been, I mean, at least originally, he was pretty boring in the first few movies. He did nothing for me until, like, Thor Ragnarok. That was when he really shined. Was Thor even in Age of Ultron? I feel like he was, but I'm not 100% sure. I'm pretty sure he was. But yeah, I would have to give the Thor character to Roman Reigns, just the long hair, the pretty boy look. I mean, obviously, Thor cut his hair in Ragnarok, and he's got the eye patch now. And he's got much more personality now than he ever did in the original movies, in my opinion. But I would still give Thor to Roman Reigns. He seems like he fits that bill fairly well. Hawkeye's a tough one. So I did an article, I've done this multiple times. I did an original article a few years ago, like when the first movie came out, like doing my original Avengers cast. Then I did the Avengers cast again for Age of Ultron, who would be each superstar. And I think for Hawkeye, I gave it to Dean Ambrose, like the wild card, the kind of the underrated person on the roster. A lot like Hawkeye in that respect. He was very underrated in my opinion. But I wouldn't so much give it to Dean Ambrose anymore as I would Rollins. From just the gear that he wears and just being the architect and how he's booked and how he's portrayed, I think Rollins is a great fit for Hawkeye. I think those two kind of go hand in hand, and I think Rollins is a bigger star for the WWE than Hawkeye is for the Avengers. But I think, he was another guy who kind of emerged as a dark horse in that first Avengers movie. Not really saying much, more all about action than dialogue. But then he kind of came out as a... I think he had a fairly big role in Avengers 2 and Age of Ultron, and he kind of won over a lot of people. But I think Rollins was, it took Hawkeye some time to kind of find his footing as a character, and Rollins was kind of the same way. It kind of took him some time to kind of find his footing as a babyface, strike that iron or strike, whatever. Find his, hit his stride, I guess is the phrase I'm looking for. And he finally has, and he's super over as a babyface. So I think Hawkeye would have to be Rollins. Iron Man is tough. This one I gave to my last article comparing WWE superstars to Avengers 3 years ago. This one I gave to Randy Orton. And I think I would have to give it to Randy Orton again. So I wrote down Ambrose here. But I think Iron Man has got to be someone with like a lot of wisecracks, someone who's kind of a wise ass, because that's what Iron Man is. That's what Robert Downey Jr.'s character, his portrayal of Iron Man is kind of a wise ass, but he's really, really good at what he does. Ambrose is kind of like that. He's more goofy than he is an asshole, I guess. So I would have to give it to Orton, because Orton does not really play well with others, a lot like Iron Man, but he's really, really good at what he does. He's one of the originals who's been around since day one, a lot like Iron Man, and he can get shit done, even though, he's been around for a while and he has his inner demons, a lot like Robert Downey Jr.'s character does, a lot like Tony Stark does. I think Iron Man and Orton kind of go hand in hand as well. So I'm going to give that one to Randy Orton, a lot like I did when I did this a few years ago, like I said. For Captain America, this one's tough too. I mean, I think if you asked me a couple of years ago, obviously when the first movie came out, or even when the second movie came out, I think Captain America would very obviously have to be John Cena. Just based off how, he's the ultimate American patriot and his time as the United States champion. Now, when the second one came out, he was doing the whole United States Championship US Open shit. So obviously he would have had to have been Captain America. That was the most obvious one. But now with Cena not really being full-time anymore, could he really still be Captain America? Now, if it's not Cena, and Captain America is very, at least for the first few movies, not really so much anymore. But when it comes to Captain America's character and really being the goody two-shoes and always doing what's right, and he's kind of, he's not really beloved despite being the ultimate good guy, you would think that people would start to resent that after a while. But really, it hasn't become the case at all in recent Avengers or MCU movies. So I would have to say, if it's not John Cena, probably Daniel Bryan. I mean, Captain America is far from an underdog. I mean, he was the guy that was super scrawny before he became the Captain America that we now know and love. But just in always doing what's right and always being fairly beloved by the audience, I think Daniel Bryan would fit that character to a T. I mean, then again, he is also the American Dragon, so maybe it does make perfect sense. Bryan being the American Dragon, Steve Rogers being Captain America. You know what, I do kind of like that choice now the more that I think about it. So I would give the Captain America role to Daniel Bryan. And finally, for Black Widow. So I think 6 years ago when I first did my Avengers WWE Superstar comparisons, I think I gave it to AJ Lee, who obviously would make the most. I mean, a fucking finisher is called the Black Widow. How can it not be AJ Lee? And she was a big star even back in 2012. Nowadays, obviously AJ Lee's gone. The comparison list that I did in 2015, I gave it to Paige, if only because she was only the really prominent female on the roster. That's how depleted the women's division was at that point in time. And Paige kind of makes sense. She was kind of a dark horse, did her own thing, kind of a badass. So Black Widow and Paige made sense. Now Paige is retired too. Who do you give it to? I mean, there's I was going to say Charlotte. I wrote down Charlotte here, but I feel like Asuka makes more sense. She's on the smaller side, but she could still kick ass. Asuka, you do not want to fucking mess with. Charlotte, same thing, but Charlotte feels more like a female Captain America than she does Black Widow. Black Widow is just the epitome of female empowerment, and I think Asuka kind of stands for the same thing. I mean, most of the other women on the WWE roster today do. But just in terms of the characters, and Asuka's more flashy with the colors than Black Widow is. But she could still fight side by side with her male counterparts and not feel out of place. A lot like Black Widow, who just kicks ass in every single movie she's been a part of, and Asuka kicks ass too. She was undefeated for 2.5 years before getting beat at WrestleMania. So I like Asuka as the choice for Black Widow. Now everyone else, I have no idea. Yeah, Black Panther. You have, who else is in it now? Doctor Strange. I have no idea who those people would be. I can't even begin to fathom. I think the Avengers are easier to cast as superstars than those guys because they've only really been around in the MCU for not too long, like at all. They've only been around for a cup of coffee. So I'm not really sure. Like who those guys would be. If you asked me, like who Black Panther would be, who Doctor Strange would be, and all these other superheroes. And there's so many of them now, it's hard to keep track. Like who Ant-Man would be. I don't know. Well, like who's like a midget on the roster? I mean, Cedric Alexander. Like I don't fucking know. But yeah, those would be my picks. So once again, real quickly, as the Hulk, Braun Strowman; Thor, Roman Reigns; Hawkeye, Seth Rollins; Iron Man, Randy Orton; Captain America, Daniel Bryan; Black Widow, Asuka, and Thanos, Brock Lesnar. Final question, speaking of Infinity War, also from, this is from at E13A. I was going to say Ryan, but this one's from at E13A from Twitter. His question was, does this happen in Avengers Infinity War? So he basically linked me to a tweet from at Yu-Gi-Oh! Hatas, Yugiohtas. His tweet said, Iron Man is dead. Captain America is broken. Wakanda is in ruins. The heroes of the Marvel Universe have failed. Thanos smiles. He places the final Infinity Stone in his gauntlet, and a hush falls over the surrounding war zone. Suddenly, Roman Reigns' music hits. As amazing as that would have been as an ending to the movie, unfortunately, having seen it last night, it is not. It would be pretty great, though, to hear the sound of boos come over Wakanda as Roman Reigns is suddenly revealed to be the higher power of Thanos. It was me, Thanos. It was me all along, Thanos. Roman Reigns taking off his fucking, hood or whatever. Now, unfortunately, Roman Reigns does not make a cameo in Infinity War, but as I said earlier, Infinity War is well worth checking out, especially as early as you could see it. If it's on Thursday for the sneak peek showing or whatever, the first showing on a Thursday night on a theater near you, go see it. Like, you're doing yourself a major disservice by not seeing it. Just because there's going to be spoilers all over the place. Already I'm seeing spoilers, not on like Twitter and Facebook and shit, but I mean, if you really go out of your way, you can find spoilers for the movie, but it's a lot more likely that you will be spoiled for the movie in staying on Twitter and staying on social media in the next few days. Your best bet is just to stay off everything until you see the movie. If you're that big of a fan, you're not going to want to be spoiled. Trust me. The least you know about this movie, the better going in, because the more surprised you'll be, and the more you'll enjoy it. At least in my opinion. So, definitely go see Infinity War. Amazing movie. Anyway, guys, thank you for checking out the show this week. Always appreciated. Be sure to like the video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel. I think we recently actually passed 2,000 subscribers, which is crazy. I think I just saw that the other day, which I was going to tweet about it, but I forgot. But it's a pretty big deal, 2,000 subscribers, especially, it took us 7-8 years to get to 1,000, and now it only took us like a year and a half to get to 2, which is pretty awesome. So thank you for your support. I greatly appreciate it. If you want to send in any questions for the show, be sure to tweet me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well at facebook.com/graham.gsm.matthews. Leave a comment on the post. I usually put them on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last, but certainly not least, be sure to drop a comment on this very video, and I'll include your question in next week's edition. So, we got the Greatest Royal Rumble coming up on Friday, which is why I say see Infinity War as early as possible. Just because Greatest Royal Rumble is going to take up most of your day on Friday, unless you got a day off on Friday. You can watch Greatest Royal Rumble at noon, which I think is going to last until like 5 o'clock Eastern time. And then you can go see Infinity War, if you have the time, but that sounds like a great, fantastic Friday lineup if you so choose to do so. But yeah, we got Greatest Royal coming up this Friday. We got Backlash next Sunday. So Superstar Shakeup is behind us. WrestleMania is behind us. But the excitement has only just begun. So anyway, guys, thank you for checking out the show. As always, like I said earlier, have a great rest of your week. I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.